The key in New Jersey, one of the major keys, was this turnout, and particularly, as Chris just mentioned, in the urban centers, the key urban zones. This is part of the reason the White House came, President Obama came on 3 occasions to New Jersey trying to energize that vote that turned out for Obama. He said, you've got to turn out. President Obama said, you've got to turn out for Corzine just like you did for me. And if they didn't do that tonight, well, so she wrote.
It looks like it might be Christie. Got a little bit of news right here to the New York City's mayor's race. The New York Times has just this moment called the race for Mike Bloomberg. Mike Bloomberg heading back to a 3rd term in the mayor's office. Peter, we have a couple of numbers in that are very preliminary at this point. Talk us through these, but remember that these are so preliminary, and the race has been called for Bloomberg.
These are early numbers. 21% of the precincts reporting. You can see Bloomberg there with 49%. Thompson hanging tough at 48%. We'll see how these numbers play out tonight, and maybe this is an early call. Who can say?
Back to our election coverage. 2 big races we have been covering for you tonight. Both of them now have projected winners. Peter Thorne has that for you. Peter.
All right, talking about New Jersey, a year after Obama had won there and came to campaign there for John Corzine repeatedly, Chris Christie has apparently won the election. This is a local race that has been watched nationally. Look at the numbers there. Corzine, the Democrat incumbent, 44%. Christie has been named the projected winner, 71% of the precincts reporting with 50% of the vote. The independent insurgent candidate, Chris Daggett, coming in at 5%, which is pretty much what everybody expected based on the polls. But Christie wins, projected in New Jersey. Let's talk about now New York City and the mayor's race. The New York Times has said that Michael Bloomberg, they projected him the winner here, but AP, they're not going that far. They're saying that Bloomberg and contender William Thompson, the city comptroller, are locked in a tight race. You can see the numbers there, 49% for Bloomberg, 47% for Thompson, with 73% of the precincts reporting. Bloomberg spent $100 million in this campaign, which of course has become a campaign issue, and may, according to the New York Times at least, have guaranteed him a 3rd term. Talking about the comptroller's race now, John Liu is the projected winner there. And one of the big races that's been watched nationally but also out of New York is upstate. In the 23rd district, we have 31% of the precincts reporting. The conservative candidate, Hoffman there, the C is for conservative, not Republican, 44% for him. The Democrat Owens is leading there right now with 51%. And Jim and Katie, the fact that the Democrat is leading in that district upstate, that is a heavily Republican district. So those numbers might change as we proceed through the night. Back to you.
Let's pick back up on our election coverage again. What is emerging as one of the big stories from this election day is Peter Thorne. One of the things we thought would not be one of the big stories, how close this mayor's race is.
The poll said this was going to be a blowout. We thought we were going to be biting our nails, down to the wire, all the cliches. In New Jersey with Corzine and Christie. That one's been called for Christie in New York. Let's look at the numbers right now. AP is saying the mayor's race in New York City is too close to call. We've got 73% of precincts reporting. Thompson, the Democrat, he's hanging tough, folks, at 47% here. Very close to Bloomberg there with 49%. We still have, what, about a 1/3 of the precincts waiting to report in. We could be watching this all night.
How much money Bloomberg spent, the fact that it is this close
this
is astounding.
Is something I have said repeatedly throughout this campaign. He has been in office for so many years and spent so much money. You would think at this point, after $100 million, after so many years in office, you would, after so many commercials and so many campaign mailers, as we look now live inside Bloomberg election night headquarters, you would think that he would win in a cakewalk, and that's what the poll said were going to happen tonight. But guess what? What we have said as well is the only poll that matters, Thompson said it, all the politicians say, is the poll that happens in the ballot box on election day, which is going on right now. Too close to call.
Interesting to watch the crowd at Bloomberg headquarters. They look like they were kind of ready to celebrate, but weren't ready to pull the trigger just yet.
A little bit tamped down now.
Keep an eye on Peter.
You got it.
Let's go to Peter Thorne right now. He is here, been following the race all evening long, and we're all just kind of taken aback by this, among other things. But for this,
talk about unpredictable. I mean, and Katie, you mentioned, I mean, the Republicans have been in the wilderness for a while at the top of the ticket in New Jersey. Well, they are back, and they are back big time with Chris Christie. One of the overarching themes, if you will, of the night is money in politics. You know, John Corzine, nobody's Nobody's going to call him a pauper. He had a lot of money to throw at this race.
Head of Goldman Sachs, a former U.S. senator.
There you go. I mean, and money was spent. And similarly in New York City with the Bloomberg race, which frankly is too close to call according to AP. Other news organizations have called it for him, but the numbers are tight. $100 million spent in that campaign. I was talking earlier, frankly, with Lolita Lopez here tonight, and she said that this might be an after effect of the Obama campaign, where people really are willing to come forward, step forward, and accept the fact that every vote does count. That's something that William Thompson said tonight, or this afternoon, shortly after he voted. Every vote counts, and it's all about turnout, as we mentioned earlier tonight.
Right, and it was said also that the supporters of Bloomberg perhaps were so self-confident and that he would win with so much money poured into this that they didn't bother to come out and vote.
Polls. Well, we'll see that with the exit polls. Right now, what we want to do, Jim, I think, is go ahead to Jennifer Jordan. She's at the Chris Christie campaign.
Back to the New York City mayor's race. As we've been saying, it has been projected for Mayor Mike Bloomberg by a much smaller margin than anyone would have dreamed. I don't think it's too strong a word.
Well, you know, one of the things that we have been reporting throughout the evening is this threshold of 50%. Bloomberg was never able to, and hasn't been able to so far tonight, as far as the numbers that are coming in show us, cross that threshold of 50% in the polls. And this was surprising to a lot of the political experts that I talked to. They said that they would have expected at this stage in his career, after so many years in the mayor's office in Gracie Mansion here in New York City, with spending $100 million in order to secure his re-election, they thought that he would have a higher public approval rating, certainly above 50%. When you drop below 50% public approval, that means there is an undercurrent out there of some kind of angst. People are concerned. They don't want to vote for you.
And perhaps people were turned off by his bid for a third term, perhaps seeing that as arrogance. That was certainly something that Thompson pushed very hard in his campaign. Thompson
pushed that very hard. One of his themes that, you know, people sort of laughed and joked about what he said was 8 is enough. But you know what? That's catchy. And I think it might have resonated.
You know, it's kind of funny. We've actually been saying all night long around here and all week long, Mayor Bloomberg, he didn't need to spend $100 million to win this race. Well, maybe he did.
Maybe he needed to spend $200 million. Perhaps $200 million.
He knew what he was doing all along because it looks like he eked one out.
Well, it looks like it at this point.
This is not a mandate. He's got his work cut out for him now.
Certainly not. Now, I talked to a very high-level New York Democrat whose name I'll keep to myself at this point, because he was very concerned about the influence of money in politics in New York City. And he told me, you know what, Peter, it's not just me saying this. The people in New York don't like what's going on with this upending of the campaign finance system. And he may be right to a certain percentage. We can't call it. It's too close to call. I don't think anyone would have predicted that tonight in New York City.
It brings about a couple of interesting scenarios. One of them that you mentioned about the future, political future. We wouldn't have thought he would have had one after tonight, but Bill Thompson does.
If Bill Thompson, I mean, that's a very good point.
If he should run again.
If he should lose this election tonight, I think that this, what happened this evening, certainly, and here we're going to look at the numbers. Bloomberg has been called the winner here, 51% to Thompson's 46%, with 90% of the precincts reporting.
I think that's 96.
96%.
Yeah, so it's
pretty much a done deal. But the fact is that is an extraordinarily strong showing for the contender Thompson here, and I think it positions him well 4 years down the road as the front runner in the next mayor's race in New York City. Of course, the contenders who are probably already lining up, we could talk about Anthony Weiner, maybe even Mr. John Liu, who is celebrating his own victory tonight. They would surely disagree with what I just said. But certainly, this is a good, strong showing by a candidate who many people had essentially written off.
That's right.
Remarkable.
He was able to mobilize his voters, and I think that was one of the main things that got. He really went out there and got every single vote, especially in those urban strongholds. For him, like the Latino community, the African American community, they came out and voted for him, and Bloomberg's people maybe just didn't show.
He absolutely worked very hard for every vote. Well, you know, all politics is local, and you know, a lot of Washington reporters, a lot of insiders in Washington are probably going to try to depict this as bad news for Obama. But I think a lot of other politicians will say, as we just said, that all politics is local, and the issues in New Jersey had to do with the economy in New Jersey, unemployment in New Jersey, taxes in New Jersey, property taxes in particular. That's for sure. However, there will no doubt be some who will say that the White House miscalculated here by injecting the president so thoroughly and so closely into the race in New Jersey, only to come up with a loss.
This is the major storyline of the night, and I guess I'm going to quote the word used by the Associated Press here. Michael Bloomberg wins, but in a race that, as they put it, startlingly close.
Oh, after you spend $100 million, you want a wider margin than what Bloomberg got. But that concession speech, exuberant, upbeat, optimistic. Yeah. Was that a concession speech?
Well, as a man who realizes he's still
I think he's kicked off his campaign for the next go-around, but let's look at the numbers. Bloomberg is the winner here, 51%. Thompson with 46%. You know, not a lot of points separating them, just 5 points there.
And Thompson is still very young. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just going to mention that to compare it, my point of comparison in 2005, 4 years ago, Bloomberg defeated Fernando Ferrer by 20 points.
And if you look at it here, if you're talking about a 5-point margin of victory, you spend $100 million, that's what, about $20 million per point of margin of victory. That's a whole lot of money. You know me, I cannot help myself. I jumped on Twitter. Everybody's talking about the elections. You know, one of the things that came up on Twitter from M. Jacoby, screen name here, how little $100 million can buy these days. Shouldn't outspending your opponent 10-1 guaranteed more than a few point lead? So, I mean, that's just, you know, some of the information that's coming out from the internet as well. It seems that the lead might have been tighter than what folks expected because this anger, this undercurrent we've been talking about the gutting of the term limits issue and the huge amount of money that was spent, and possibly as well a low turnout, which we'll know a little bit more about tomorrow, might have served to compress that margin of victory, which was supposed to be well into the double digits, if you believe the polls. Not necessarily a wonderful night when your anticipated rout is deemed a squeaker, but with the acceptance speech here, Mayor Michael Bloomberg, yes, he has won his 3rd term as mayor of New York City, an uplifting, optimistic, and very forward-looking speech. Let's look at the numbers, 51% to 46% for his challenger, William Thompson, the Democrat. Do we have the New Jersey numbers?
Yeah, let's go to New Jersey and sum that up, too.
Okay, so the winner there, Chris Christie, the Republican, 49% to the incumbent, John Corzine's 44%, Chris Daggett with 5%, bringing up the rear, never really getting more than what he was expected to get Daggett. But Christie, certainly I don't think anybody going into tonight would have predicted his victory or his margin of victory. We thought this was going to be a nail-biter.
No, I think what we have here tonight, the situation is that the race that we thought was going to be very close wasn't, and the race that we thought was going to be a blowout was not a blowout.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, this is the thing that's fun about following politics is just when you sort of think you have it all figured out and you know what's going to happen.
The voters step in.
The voters get all involved.
Yes, right. And make the decision they're supposed to make at the ballot box.
Yes.
Well, that's good, and that's what makes it so much fun. Peter Thorne, excellent work tonight. Thank you so much for joining us up here.
My pleasure.
All right,
Thank you, Peter.
the after.